In procedures, we have a view called timeline. The timeline is not all that new to Notion, but it is new to Custom Cabinet Planner. We have not been using it because we just simply didn't have enough controls to actually be able to utilize it effectively. So when they gave us automations, and I was able to do math on arrays, I know that's a little technical, but arrays being a list of numbers like a cabinet number for multiple rooms, then I was able to actually start doing some calculations utilizing the cabinet number and some takt times. So timeline view is now available. I'm not suggesting that everyone use it. Only a few probably would. If you're doing one piece flow, it's really not that practical, because basically what we do in a cabinet shop is we start a project, and if we're working in one piece flow, we build so many cabinets each day, machine them, hardware them, assemble them, all those things, and then we start over again the next day. And so it's self-evident what everybody's supposed to do and when they're supposed to do it. But if you like the idea of assigning these procedures to someone beforehand and thinking through this process, so this represents a kitchen remodel, starting with the ballpark estimate, selections, estimate, field measure, design, double check field measure, proposal, engineering, working right on up through here, ordering all the materials, doing all the machining, doing the finishing, assembly, hardware, delivery, and installation. And so all of this represents the time it would take. It looks like we're starting this particular project on the 23rd of December and finishing up on the 28th of January from beginning to end for the whole project, including some wait times in there, waiting for materials, waiting for decisions, and those kind of things. But if you want to think through all of these things, all these rooms would already be here. If we open up you can see up here, there's a table view, arrows to the right. We click on that and we can actually see the table view of all these rooms. And so if we want to start moving these around, they're going to be based off of whatever we've set this timeline to. So I'm going to jump into the timeline. This is going to be a little bit longer than our normal instructional videos, but if we come into the three dots up here next to the new button and go into layout, it says it's a timeline. We see that we have a start date and an end date, and we've chosen those fields. Those are fields that live in our database, and we've said I have a start date and we have an end date. Our end date happens to be a formula. We'll look at that in a second. And here's where we turned that on, where we could separate those dates. Some people would use a single date and have a start and end in that single date field. We didn't want to do that because we want to calculate one of those dates. And then we want to be able to see this table view. We can open it or close it. I'm going to go ahead and close it back down. But in this table view, we've said that we do want to have the start and end date, and we want to separate those dates. You can't select this separate date until you've told it that you want to separate the dates, and then you can select this separate date. All right, so let's back up here a little bit, and let's kind of see what we've told it to do. So we're showing three properties. We'll go ahead and click on that. And so we're showing the name, which we see right there. We're showing the assignee, which is actually this little circle with an icon in it or an initial in it. If they don't have an icon for themselves, then there would be an initial. And then we're showing the stage, and the stage is kind of showing that everything here in kind of this pinkish reddish color is in the office preparation before it ever hits the shop floor. And then everything in this yellow piece is manufacturing on the shop floor, and then everything in the blue is in the field. We don't have any filters. We have one sort, and that is trying to make sure these sort like this, that this is working up. So we have a sort number, and we're using that sort number to sort with. And then we're grouping by projects. So you can see here, if I were to close this down, I don't think there's anything else here we need to look at. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. And you'll see that we could see all the projects in a really small space here if we didn't have them open. And then as you open them, and you can open one or open all of them, however you want to do that. And then the actual process is laborious, to say the least, but there is a piece of this that is doing some of the work for you. So these will be here because you've created them. So once they're here, and even some of this work will be done for you, the arrows won't be there unless you draw them or answer the field. So here's the Buckley Remodeled Ballpark. So this is the data page for that particular item. And if we were to come up here and open up this side menu, and you can see this is where we linked the project database, and then linked the rooms. You also see here we have a start date and an end date. This end date, if I get off of it, you can see it has the sum sign in front of it. That means it's a calculated field. So all we're entering is when are we going to start this process, and then it calculates how long based on this information down here. This project has 16 cabinets, and we have set a base takt time of 0.05 hours per cabinet. and we don't have a minimum time for this particular item. You might not. A minimum time is a fixed time in addition to. So if you had to travel to a job site, you might say, I've got a minimum time of an hour. Maybe I've got 30 minutes there and 30 minutes back, or maybe you've got an hour and a half. And then it's going to calculate from that a forecast per hour, and the actual hour is just going to be summed up from where people are clocking in and clocking out. And this takt time per cabinet is something you set in the processes. Again, we won't jump into all of that here. Stage is a lookup field, just so we can have the stage available. And so that's what's going to put it here and say how long it's going to take. And then once you put this start date in here, it's going to calculate the end date. And then if you've got a start date for each one of these, it's going to put them in the right position and put the right span of time on it. You have one of two options. I wanted to get into one that had two arrows on it to open it to show you how this works. So when I'm floating over this, if you look right there where my mouse is, there's a yellow circle. And that is where that arrow comes from. And then I drug it to here and attached it to this. And then I drug this yellow circle from here to here and attached it to that. And then I drug it from here to here. That's one way of doing it. And I think that's the most effective way of doing it. Another way of doing it, not as clear to everyone, or at least the people that have tried it so far, is back in this panel right here. We've got blocked by and blocking. And so you have the ability to say that Buckley Remodel Selections is blocked by ballpark estimate, and it is blocking the estimate. So we couldn't do the selections until we had done the ballpark estimate, and we couldn't do the estimate until we had done the selections. And so you can answer these fields and achieve the same thing, but I think actually this is really fast drawing these arrows, and it really makes you think through it. And if you have done that, then you have the capability, once you've done that, again, depending on the settings. So I'm going to go back here one more time, jump into this layout, and go to this customize procedures. And then we see these dependencies here. And when we click on that, we have the capability of choosing some options here. It's showing that this automatic date shifting, and so we have three options here. Shift only when dates overlap, so that automatically shifts it. If you give it a start date and an end date that doesn't work, it actually automatically shifts it. Shift and maintain time between items, so you can see here there's like a whole, almost a week from the backside of this. This is all happening on the 23rd, and then we're not even starting this to the 30th, basically saying we're having to wait for them to accept this and agree, yes, okay, now we can meet to do these selections. And so there's 4 days there that is a gap. And so that's that time between. And then there's just don't do it at all. Don't do anything. You can move these anywhere you want and nothing happens to any of the other ones. This one probably makes the most sense for cabinet makers. Shift and maintain time between items. So if it's set like that, then if we were to take this and say, well, this didn't happen. We scheduled it for the 23rd, but it didn't happen on the 23rd. So if we take this and shift it over a week, you'll see everything else jump a week, maintaining the space. And if we take any one of these items and move it, everything behind it will move, because we have created this dependency. These arrows represent a dependency that we cannot do selections until we've done the ballpark estimate, and we can't do the estimate until we've done selections. And you can see here on some of these, like engineering, the dependency for all of the ordering is dependent on the engineering being done. So the engineering is done, then you can start ordering the materials. You see a few weird arrows here, some of them coming from way down here all the way up here, but those are true dependencies that you can't start machining the cabinet parts until the sheet goods that you're going to use are there. So that's how this works. You could actually, and if you see here, if we open up this second job, Chapman 114, again, all of these are hypothetical or fake jobs, but you can see how they're kind of dovetailing. So ballpark estimate here is starting on the 30th, which is actually wrong now. They're not dovetailing as much as they were. But again, I could bring this back to here and everything will back up. So that's where it was. And so whoever was doing the ballpark estimate here would be able to do the ballpark estimate here because it's later, and we're going through that same, this is that repeat that I said that happens with one piece flow too. This guy's doing this here, but then he's doing it for this next job here, and then he's doing it for another job down here and another job over here. And so they're just kind of climbing this ladder of going through this process. So that's it for how the timeline view works if you want to try to utilize it.